2 decades after Mother Teresa's death, the daily procession of admirers and worshippers hasn't abated at the mother house of the Missionaries of Charity. If anything, it's ticked upward after her canonization.
Let us pray.
We followed a group of students from St. John Vianney Seminary in Minnesota whose 10-day visit to Kolkata was funded by a private Minneapolis benefactor.
The mission was for, at least for me, is to dive deeper into the life of Mother Teresa and to see a little bit more about how she lived.
They came to immerse themselves in the work of the diminutive Albanian-born nun who founded one of the most recognizable faith-based charities, 4,500 nuns and priests in 700 centers on 5 continents. Kolkata, the crowded megacity where it all began, has always loomed large in their work, its poverty still vividly on display in some neighborhoods, jarring first-time visitors like the Midwest seminarians traveling on this day to a leprosy center.
The horns of the cars that ring in your head throughout the night, all of these dogs, the smells in the air that just kind of smack you right in the face and you're not able to get away from them in any way.
It's been kind of hard to grapple with. You see it, but it kind of feels like a movie in a lot of ways. So it's not very real.
Before coming here, for example, most had no idea that Hansen's disease or leprosy is still around. Antibiotics can cure Hansen's disease, but not the stigma.
So everybody working was a former patient.
Patients and their families live in this large complex started by the Missionaries of Charity, producing crafts and textiles to earn an income.
The sisters don't go out and try to fix the society. They really embrace the culture that they're in. They find people, the absolute poorest of the poor. It's what's so different about Mother Teresa is she doesn't go and try to fix all the problems in the world. She goes out to love, to bring love into the problems of the world.
For Mother Teresa's critics, that approach had serious shortcomings, one which they said treated symptoms of poverty, not the disease.
One of the criticisms leveled at Mother Teresa's organization years ago was that it was providing substandard medical care to the sick and to the dying in their facilities. In response, the sisters agreed to make improvements. However, cameras have not been allowed for years into Missionaries of Charity facilities.
Missionaries of Charity has long shunned the media spotlight and did not respond to our request to film and for an interview. The organization's finances are not disclosed publicly, critics say, and recently it stopped placing children in its care up for adoption after Indian law made single people eligible to adopt. A spokeswoman expressed concern that children could end up in gay households. Mother Teresa often swam against social tides, but stayed true to her beliefs, says journalist Sandeep Roy.
She was a Catholic nun, and that dogma was part of her calling. If she was not, if she was a much more pro-gay or pro-choice or all of those things that we associate, with progressivism, she would not be Mother Teresa, the Catholic nun.
That calling included a vow of poverty and service to the poor and the suffering, and Roy says that may inform the order's approach to its mission.
There is a certain perception of a nobility in suffering too, which is not necessarily how we would judge the metric that we would use to judge the quality of service being offered.
I came to India in 1956, but she was one of the first people that I met. There was a holiness about her, which at the time it struck me as being that she was different to other people.
Sister Cyril Mooney, a veteran Kolkata missionary and educator, was a friend of Mother Teresa who sent many poor children to schools run by Mooney's Loreto order. She says Mother Teresa's laser-sharp focus on the very poorest might explain why her services and facilities are Spartan and simple, a refuge for those on society's most desperate margins.
Her argument was that if we give them very good care, gradually the well-off people will crowd in and take over. That was an argument, yeah. Which I don't agree with.
You sound skeptical about that.
Oh yes, I am very skeptical about many of these things. But you can be skeptical about one's methods of procedure and not necessarily be skeptical about the results.
I mean, you really are an admirer of her
but not quite of some of the methods.
The methods, I admire her for her courage, her humility, her way of doing things in the sense of getting what she wanted and so on, but for other people, never for herself.
It's that selflessness that the Minnesota seminarians say most impressed them during a week of visiting and volunteering at Missionaries of Charity facilities.
We do our volunteer work for a couple hours and we come back absolutely exhausted. We've only been here for like 6 days, but it's taken a toll on all of us. Just to see the sisters, though, for all of us, how this is their life.
I thought that 2 hours was a long time, but you know, it really seems like it when your hands are getting really raw, and just that type of service, it really reminds me to be intentional with my actions and to be mindful of the people that I'm serving, even though it's indirect.
I want to really encourage my future parishioners to go to the quote-unquote other side of the tracks, to break free of the comfortable suburban sanctuaries that we've built, and to really engage in what reality is. In that way, we can really learn to build up the body of Christ.
There's so many people here that may be poor financially and monetarily, but they're so rich in so many other areas of their life that it just elevates us to try to be better versions of ourselves.
Simplicity has always attracted me because I think of simplicity as material simplicity, being as the missionaries are, they are intentionally poor. They make their lives simple so that they can be free to serve others. But also I think that penetrates deeper to the disposition to serve in terms of singleness of purpose.
We are very blessed to.
It will make me a better priest by simply recognizing how uncomfortable I am in difficult situations and turning more and more to the Lord and asking the Lord to walk me through them. And so recognizing that and asking for myself for that grace to be far more generous.
Even as the Missionaries of Charity keep their public profile low, their founder remains a towering figure here and around the world, drawing pilgrims, priests, and would-be priests to the city that in her canonization became part of her name. At the headquarters of St. Teresa of Calcutta, this is Fred de Sam Lazaro for Religion and Ethics News Weekly.